This episode of the EV Resource Podcast is brought to you by Titan Auto and Tire. Titan has some of the very few independent auto repair shops in Central Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs and hybrids. And from hybrids to Hummers, they fix everything. For more information and to schedule an appointment for your vehicle, go to TitanAutoTire.com. Coming up this week, EVs make a big splash at this year's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. We're talking about the Ram Revolution EV truck and much more. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to episode 136 of the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and interviews with industry experts. I have a packed show for you this week. It's going to be tough for me to get through all of this in a half hour, so if it does end up running long, I just ask for your understanding. So much has happened this week, and I really didn't want to cut out any of the announcements and news from this podcast episode. I do have a bunch of news unrelated to CES to cover, but first let's dive right into the 11 news stories coming out of CES this week, as those are really exciting. First up is a story about Dutch startup Lightyear. The makers of the Lightyear Zero solar electric vehicle have their eyes set here on the North American auto market with the introduction of the Lightyear 2, a solar electric sedan they say will have more than 500 miles of range and a starting price of under $40,000. Along with plans to sell the Lightyear 2 here in the United States, the company says it will launch the EV in Europe where they are based. The US version is said to start under $40,000, which, if that is true, would make it one of the more affordable electric models sold here. Production isn't planned to start until the end of 2025, which means a lot could change between now and then. I'm keeping my fingers crossed on this one, but I'm not going to hold my breath. We'll see. I would love it if this actually came into the market here. We need more affordable EVs, and ones with solar panels just bring an added element into the mix that I really appreciate. They currently have a waitlist that you can join via their website. I have added my name into the mix, so I will certainly keep you up to date on all the latest details for this vehicle. The technology that is going into the Lightyear 1 is likely to be included in the Lightyear 2, specifically the in-wheel hub motors from Afeela that will be used by the Aptera and Lordstown Motors vehicles. Next up is more information on the Vinfast VF6 and VF7 vehicles. Vinfast originally unveiled these two models last year at the 2022 CES event. And speaking at that show in Las Vegas, Vinfast's CEO said that deliveries are expected to begin at the end of this year and into early 2024. Vinfast also updated the specifications for each SUV with an estimated range. The 174 horsepower eco version of the subcompact VF6 is expected to go 248 miles on the WLTP test cycle, while the 201 horsepower plus trim is slightly lower at 237 miles. As a rough estimate, that converts to somewhere between 190 and 200 miles on the EPA test cycle, but the final numbers might even be lower. The compact VF7 is targeted to go 280 miles on the WLTP test in 201 horsepower eco trim, and the 348 horsepower dual motor all-wheel drive plus version is said to go 268 miles. That translates to somewhere between 170 and 224 miles on the EPA test cycle. The company did not mention the overall battery capacity for either vehicle. Pricing for both models should be announced sometime in the next month or so. The VF6 is estimated to start somewhere around $30,000, where the VF7's estimated base price is to start around $40,000. Over the last few years, CES has followed roughly the same trend as the automotive industry as a whole, blurring the lines between what can be deemed part of the car world and what lives solely in technology. For 2023, Volvo brought its first purpose-built EV, the 2024 EX90 SUV, to CES for its North American debut. But of course, CES is about technology, not necessarily specifically about cars, so Volvo was mainly showing off its newest Google mapping software. Google's HD Map was designed specifically for automakers to integrate into their vehicles. In the EX90, it utilizes the SUV's LiDAR, cameras, and radar systems along with lane level and local data from Google. Lane markers and objects like signs or other vehicles are combined with the data from the EX90's sensors before the software gets processed through the vehicle's native computers. Of course, I haven't used this technology yet in the real world, but as far as I can tell, it looks like the Google HD map system is similar to the way you would experience with Tesla's system. The radar and camera systems of the car take in images and provide the driver with real-time information on their surroundings. The Volvo EX90 and Polestar 3 will be the first two vehicles to get the technology before it moves to other Volvo vehicles and partnering brands. Volvo is also rolling out over-the-air updates, which will increase the number of functions Google-enabled Volvos can utilize. The new update adds connectivity between personal Google devices, such as Google Home products, and their car. Owners will now be able to use their devices for things like checking battery levels, charging status, or asking their car to preheat on cold mornings. In addition to the new Google features, Volvo is introducing or updating various other tech features. Access to Volvo's Care Key function is expanding, and details about over-the-air updates will now be available on the Volvo Cars app, among other infotainment tweaks. So personally, I am really excited to see this and use it in person. While I wasn't exactly impressed with Google's user interface when I tested it on the Polestar 2, with all things related to technology, things improve and change and get better. So I can't wait, and I'm looking forward to this. While Chrysler hasn't released a new car in a while, at CES this year, it's showing a concept for a new interior that could make its way into future Chrysler products. Called the Synthesis Cockpit Demonstrator, this two-seat cabin with a futuristic dashboard layout and advanced infotainment system previews what Chrysler's upcoming EVs, the first of which is due in 2025, could look like inside. The main focal points of the dashboard are two massive 37.2-inch screens, one in front of the driver and the other one in front of the passenger. These incorporate a software that Chrysler calls Stella, STLA, Smart Cockpit, which includes a virtual assistant, various display modes, and over-the-air updates. The infotainment system is also optimized for the planned Level 3 autonomous driving system called Stella AutoDrive that Chrysler says will offer hands-free driving in future vehicles. While in autonomous mode, the infotainment screen will allow the driver to use video conferencing software and other functions, and since the system will differ from current Level 2 systems such as GM's Super Cruise, in that it will permit the driver to look away from the road when certain conditions are met. It's reasonable to expect to see components from this interior inside the eventual production version of the Chrysler Airflow concept car. This electric SUV model is a likely candidate for Chrysler's first new EV model scheduled to debut in 2025, and the automaker says it will offer a broader EV lineup by 2028. Parent company Stellantis says that the Chrysler brand will be on the forefront of the company's newest tech offerings, and other brands including Dodge, Jeep, and Ram will eventually receive features like Stella Smart Cockpit and Stella AutoDrive as well. And speaking of Ram, they had promised their first all-electric truck would be eye-popping and extreme with looks, features, and specs so bold it might make you forget that it's not going to be here until 2024, well after their competition introduces their trucks. For more than a year now, Ram executives have been talking smack about how the 2024 Ram 1500 Revolution electric pickup truck will beat out the rest of the field, having had a good look at what others have had to offer and how the consumers have responded. Electric trucks like the GMC Hummer EV, Ford F-150 Lightning, Rivian R1T have definitely had the biggest head starts as they're already available for purchase. GM is going to launch the 2024 Chevy Silverado EV this year and add the GMC Sierra EV in 2024. Likely by the end of 2023, we'll also see the delayed Cybertruck from Tesla being delivered to customers, and all of this is happening well before the Ram pickup truck is going to hit showrooms. While Ram may be late to market, they are bringing a serious contender. Ram brand CEO Mike Koval Jr. has spent the past year saying Ram will use its come-from-behind status to top the field in all the key areas that matter to buyers: towing and payload, range, and charge time. His team has also traveled the country on the year-long Real Talk tour, seeking suggestions and feedback as the concept vehicle took shape. And now finally at CES, Ram has given the world its first look at what it has been bragging about, the Ram 1500 Revolution battery electric vehicle concept. And it is still just a concept, but it is expected that the real deal will break cover in just a few months. The design of the production model has been locked in and keeps a lot of what the concept is showcasing. When speaking about the concept on display, Koval said that this is the roadmap to Ram's future and its mission to redefine the pickup segment, saying, quote, "Everything you see from now on will be a direct descendant of this," end quote. And Ram was not going to follow the more conservative approaches by Ford, which modified and electrified the existing F-150, and GM, which created all new trucks from the ground up, but kept the overall styling somewhat conservative and familiar to the ICE versions as to not spook their loyal truck buyers. Ram did it differently. They have gone full out, modern, edgy, brutish, not as far out there as the Tesla Cybertruck, mind you, but they definitely have some exciting styling. The future of Ram trucks is ultra modern, and its designers went for a look that is both brutal and beautiful, or as head of design Ralph Giles calls it, brutiful. The body retains Ram DNA with fender flares and an accentuated Coke bottle shape. The face of the truck is animated and has new Ram badging on an LED tuning fork headlight design. The LED lights have been integrated into the front bumper flares. The fascia has a skid plate and pivoting tow hooks that can sit flush. The LED taillights are also fully animated. Koval calls it a heroic design that will change hearts and minds when it comes to pickup trucks, especially as it will offer, quote, white-knuckle acceleration and extraordinary efficiency, end quote. The whole cabin was shifted forward, and it's 4 inches longer than today's 1500s, while the bed length remains the same. The roof height is lower, likely for better aerodynamics, and it comes only as a crew cab, which, that's fine. That's the preferred configuration of 80 to 90% of Ram's buyers, according to Koval. And the doors. There are flush door-handled features which do not pop out. Touch them, and the door itself opens a few inches, and then the grab handle is on the end of the door. Also built into the ends of the door are removable speakers, portable battery chargers, and storage compartments that can be heated or cooled, or can store straps or house a first aid kit. The cabin can be configured into usable workspace with a removable center console, or slide the center armrests over to serve as a fold-flat work surface for driver or passenger. And a new twist, they have introduced third-row seats in a pickup truck. In this case, they are 2 jump seats. Like GM's electric trucks, the Ram Revolution has a powered midgate with rear window that retracts and folds into the cabin. But Ram is taking things a step further. You can slide the first 2 rows of seats forward, and they are on the Ram Track floor mount system, to reveal a third row of mounted jump seats. You can even remove the lower portion of the seats and prop them up bleacher style on the ground or on the bed for tailgating. You can also remove the front seats from the track and reattach them swiveled to face rear passengers. The seats have extended recline capability and can be folded flat. Each chair has integrated seat belts built into it and built-in grab handles and speakers. The Ram truck rail attachment floor track system also allows the user to shift the center console around as needed, and the track continues forward through the frunk and also rearward through the truck bed. The removable lower section of the jump seats also create a pass-through to both the bed and the frunk to fit objects such as PVC piping and wood planks up to 18 feet long with the tailgate closed, and seemingly longer with the fold-out bed extender in place. The opening where it meets the front firewall is roughly 1 foot by 1 foot. And yes, there is a front trunk, and while we don't have any dimensions on it, it does fall between the huge squared-off frunk in the Ford F-150 Lightning and the shallower and narrow openings that we've seen in the Silverado and Sierra EVs. The Ram Revolution frunk has the continuation of the Ram Track rail system, as well as compartment dividers, cup holders, a drain, and 4 power outlets. The frunk lid is powered and opens and closes via touch. The tailgate is also powered, as are side steps and a rear step with an active diffuser. There are more power outlets in the pickup bed. Ram has also made the Ram box side storage bins larger. The side view mirrors are smaller than you'd expect on the Ram Revolution, mostly because they incorporate a digital camera for a full view of the truck's surroundings. Images from cameras around the truck project a 360-degree view on the digital screens inside the truck. The mirror housings are also lighter thanks to their 3D printed designs that integrate backup floodlights. The Ram Revolution uses the Stellantis Stella frame body-on-frame architecture designed specifically for their full-size electric vehicles. It incorporates the battery pack, and there are full underbody panels and an active diffuser for aerodynamics. The architecture was designed for heavy vehicles, and Koval says even so, the Revolution will remain in the light-duty truck category. All-wheel drive is achieved by having two electric drive modules, one in front and one in back. The Revolution Concept also has four-wheel steering with up to 15 degrees of articulation, and that's actually quite a bit. I think a lot of four-wheel or rear-wheel steering that I've seen goes up to 11 degrees, so 15 should make it a lot easier to maneuver such a large vehicle, and it also means, as Koval has confirmed, that it will be able to crab walk, similar to the feature that we've seen on the Hummer EV. It's going to have air suspension that offers 3 modes, lowered to be able to get in and out more easily, aero, and the highest setting for off-road. The company says the Ram Revolution will offer class-leading range, but we're going to have to wait a few more months to get the full specs on that. Realistically, we can likely expect that it'll fall somewhere between the Ford F-150 Lightning at its 320 miles with the extended range battery and the Chevy Silverado EV that has a range of 400 miles. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if Ram really pulls it out and pushes that range beyond 400 miles, but we'll just have to see. What they have said is that the Ram Revolution Concept can add up to 100 miles of range in about 10 minutes when using an 800-volt DC fast charger at up to 350 kilowatts. The Ram will also follow the competition in offering smart charge capability to make it easy to let the energy flow at off-peak times, and it can also be used to power tools, a home, or other vehicles. The company also used CES to show a new inductive robot charger, inductive being wireless, and they're calling it the Ram Charger. Go figure. They say it should make charging at home easier, which honestly, I don't think that's a big pain point for most EV owners, but this is really, really cool. It's a robot that sits on the floor and detects if the vehicle is present, also its state of charge, and then it will align itself underneath the truck for wireless charging. So they revealed a ton of different features. It'll be interesting to see what of these, if not all of them, actually make it to the full production version. But regardless of how it ends up, there is no doubt that the EV truck market is heating up, and this is going to be a very, very healthy contender. Next, BMW couldn't let CES come and go without highlighting their technology plans. Just over a year ago, BMW debuted the iVision circular concept hatchback, which premiered an all-new exterior design language, wearing no paint and featuring a pillar-to-pillar augmented reality display on the windshield. It seems the brand is moving forward with much of that concept, as it's just debuted another BMW iVision DEE Concept car at CES this year, with a similar but new graphic design language, big boxy greenhouse, funky paint, and fancy augmented reality work on the interior. This latest concept, however, is much more detailed and hints at where the new class of BMW models in 2025 will take us. Adrian van Hooydonk, BMW's global... Hooydonk. Hooydonk. So if that's not the way you say that, then by all means correct me. Adrian van Hooydonk, BMW's global head of design, told a media roundtable at CES this year that BMW's new class of vehicles will take a, quote, big step in electric mobility, sustainability, or circularity, and the digital domain, end quote. He described the 2023 iVision DEE concept as a reduction of the core elements of BMW design, and DEE stands for Digital Emotional Experience. The goal was reduced geometry, with the design focused more on the digital aspects of the car versus its overall shape. Reduction is the key theme of the approach, both inside and out, with augmented reality displays that are voice-activated and special touch control materials on the dashboard. However, BMW executives stressed that the company had no plans to completely remove its traditional buttons and switches, and it has owner data on which switches get used the most and in which conditions. And honestly, I think that's cool, but also a little creepy that they have data on which buttons are being pressed in their vehicles. Definitely we live in a connected world. But what this allows them to do is map both touch and physical buttons in a real-world optimized way, not necessarily what might seem the most logical or orderly on paper. DEE introduces color to BMW's previous e-ink technology, which was introduced at last year's CES in black and white on a production-ready BMW iX. And if you remember, that was a big hit last year because the vehicle changed black to white to black. I mean, the color-changing cars. Like, this is just really cool. I haven't seen it in person, but I have been told it's quite incredible. And this year, the panels of the car can now be individually broken up into various shapes, colors, and patterns. And while that might seem like something that is sci-fi and long into the future, BMW executives did say that everything we see on the DEE is closer to reality than we might think. DEE also features a personalized walk-up welcoming sequence of graphics, lights, and sound effects. Together with the e-ink kidney grille and headlights, the cars produce so-called facial expressions to communicate with those outside the vehicle. A driver avatar can also be projected onto the side window. I mean, this is really cool stuff, but it's like you're living in a video game, not in the real world. I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. Inside, BMW wants to give owners and occupants as much control over the digital cluster in front of them, including a mixed reality slider in combination with a full windscreen heads-up display that the automaker has now confirmed will come to its production models beginning in 2025. The options are selected via steering wheel controls, and the 5-step selection includes analog, driver-focused, communications, augmented reality, and fully virtual elements, the latter few options pending future Level 3 and Level 4 self-driving technologies that admittedly are not ready for the road yet. For me, I'm most excited, if you can't tell, about the color-changing exterior. This is something that I have dreamed about becoming a reality since I was just a young kid playing with color-changing Matchbox cars. Now, many years later, we finally get to see this becoming a reality. Mercedes-Benz is next on the CES news list with the announcement of an ambitious plan to develop a worldwide charging network of as many as 10,000 fast-charging power stations by the end of the decade, starting this year here in the US and Canada. Mercedes is aiming to have 400 fast-charging hubs with some 2,500 chargers built and operating in North America by 2027. They are partnering with ChargePoint, which we know as the charging equipment company, and MN8 Energy, one of the biggest solar energy and battery storage companies here in the US. The goal is to not only quickly ramp up the stations, which should be capable of charging speeds up to 350 kilowatts, but also build them as sustainably as possible using solar and other renewable energy sources. Although non-Mercedes EVs will be able to charge at the stations, Mercedes customers will be the primary focus of this effort, and they will be able to reserve spots at the stations through the Mercedes-Benz Electric Intelligence navigation setup that also helps present Mercedes EV owners optimize their long-distance route planning. The goal is to ensure that there will be no waiting around for a charge station for Mercedes cars. They also plan to incorporate a plug-in charge function that allows charging stations to communicate directly with the car, and that will eliminate any input from the driver to the station for payments or to initiate the charge. Mercedes says it will place its stations in optimum locations in key cities and population centers, including at many of its dealerships, and wants to place them near other businesses that will make it convenient for EV owners to fuel themselves up. It's also pledged that the power of the stations will be load managed to keep charging times optimized for all vehicles, and that the bays will have plenty of space for each vehicle, and that the stations of as many as 30 bays will be safe, secure, and covered whenever possible. It's all part of a more than $1 billion investment to start in America that will be funded in a 50-50 split between Mercedes and MN8. And it's definitely nice to see that more automakers are recognizing the need to provide specialized charging services and putting their own money into the mix to make it happen. Next, Volkswagen is giving us more details on the future ID.7 vehicle. Last year, if you remember, we finally got to see details on the upcoming US market ID. Buzz all-electric van, and now at CES this year, we're finally learning about the upcoming Volkswagen EV, which is a sedan based on the ID. Aero concept car, and this should be officially called the ID.7. Volkswagen's commitment to the fledgling sedan segment over the years is to be admired, and it continues now with the ID.7, which sits on a spacious 116.9-inch wheelbase. And that is fairly long, and that means that Volkswagen can cram in a long-range battery that it claims should be good for roughly 435 miles on the WLTP cycle. Volkswagen says the new ID.7 will be sold on 3 continents, so naturally, I'm curious to see what the range for the EPA estimate will be, but I definitely think that its range would compete with something like the long-range Model 3, maybe even be a little bit better. For now, the ID.7 with the funky digital paintwork that is seen at CES is still a prototype, with the production version to be shown in the second quarter of this year, so we won't have to wait too long. The colorful camouflage that we see on the vehicle at CES is not going to make it to production. It's emitting light through 22 exterior panels of the car thanks to a special paint layering process that allows a current to be supplied through the paintwork for the light up effect. Another cool trick that I absolutely love. The problem with that is that it's too heavy, and so there's no way that that's going to make it in its current technological form onto production models. Volkswagen says the ID.7 will introduce a customer-requested improved user experience with a new display interface concept on an also new 15-inch touchscreen unit. Part of this new interface is a completely digital airflow management system where the air conditioning adjustments will now be made using touch buttons and sliders on the screen that will direct airflow and fan speed. These smart air vents will also come with short user commands like "My hands are cold" that will activate specific air conditioning settings, and the setup will also offer preconditioning of the cabin climate when it detects a key fob approaching. That kind of sounds like what Tesla offers, doesn't it? It's amazing that the technology that Tesla has introduced into the automotive market is slowly kind of filtering its way through every automaker. At least that I've seen, you can kind of point and nod to different design or technological aspects of vehicles these days. You can easily point to a Tesla model where that might have been introduced first. A big freaking center screen, of course, being the big one, and then having the air conditioning controls integrated into the user interface. And honestly, I'm not all that confident in that for Volkswagen because we know that software isn't exactly their strong suit. The new ID.7 will be Volkswagen's 6th model introduced on the MEB platform, of course, following the ID.3, ID.4, ID.5, and Chinese ID.6 SUVs and the ID Buzz bus. This sedan promises to be one of the more aerodynamic models, naturally, with the company hinting its overall drag coefficient will be near the ID Aero Concept's previously announced 0.23 measurement. Peugeot has presented its vision for the future of electric cars at CES 2023, where it previewed its latest concept sedan called the Inception. The car is all angles and sharp lines with panoramic glass windows that go all around its middle, paired with a glass roof. Peugeot says its body shape is made of very fine metal pigments, while the lights on the front bumper incorporate the brand's 3 emblematic claws. Inception, named not after the movie, but after the Latin word inceptio, which means the beginning, was built on one of Stellantis' 4 future BEV by design platforms, specifically the one for low sedans. It uses an 800-volt, 100-kilowatt-hour battery technology that gives it the capability to travel 497 miles on a single charge and can recharge as many as 93 miles within 5 minutes of being plugged in. The 4-wheel drive vehicle can also be recharged via wireless induction, eliminating the need for charging cables. And when it comes to power, Inception's 2 electric motors can generate 680 horsepower combined and give it the ability to accelerate from 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds. The concept also marks the debut of the brand's next-gen Cockpit. It replaces the classic steering wheel with a rectangular one called the Hypersquare, which comes with a tablet-type screen at the center that displays information. There's a circular recess at each corner of the screen that users can program to control certain aspects of their vehicle so they can easily use their thumbs to access them without having to take their hands off the wheel. Peugeot says the Inception will inspire its future electric vehicles, including its most compact models. The first cars based on this design will arrive as soon as 2025. CES also saw the public display of Canada's Project Aero. If you remember back from episode 91 of this podcast, Project Aero is a collaboration among 50 parts suppliers that make up the Canadian Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, or APMA. Flavio Volpe, president of APMA, said, quote, "It came out exactly the way we wanted it to, and we think we finished on the exterior end. On the technology, the way it operates, and how all those systems operate together have come according to plan, on budget, and on time," end quote. For now, there are no plans to mass produce this vehicle. The Aero was built to showcase the Canadian auto industry's ability to manufacture electric vehicles, and they have certainly done that. So definitely look for more automotive news coming out of Canada, and as it does, I am happy to keep you all updated. Honda has revealed plans to build a rolling PlayStation console. Okay, no, but that's certainly the easy joke to be made about something that the company is definitely serious about. Though not a gaming platform, but an actual car that Honda and Sony have teamed up to build. Sony Honda Mobility, a joint venture between the two Japanese companies, has revealed a prototype of a handsome new electric sedan that it plans to sell here in the US as soon as 2026. It will be part of a new brand called Afeela, spelled Afeela. Afeela will start taking orders in 2025 and says that deliveries will start in North America in the spring of 2026. As you would expect from an EV presented by Sony, the prototype EV has a whopping 45 cameras and sensors placed inside and outside the vehicle. Paired with the 800 TOPS of maximum computing power for an ECU, the Afeela concept is more than just a new way to think of EVs. The EV embraces entire suites of next-generation software from Qualcomm Technologies, Snapdragon digital chassis for ADAS and telematics solutions, to a collaboration with Epic Games on the entertainment side of things. The concept itself is a relatively standard-issue EV design with a low profile and aerodynamic wheels, claiming that the EV concept is here to create a new value standard for mobility. Sony and Honda don't want you to think about the car in traditional terms like power and performance. Instead, the highlights here should be on software, networks, and user experiences. In other words, all areas where Sony has some serious experience. Digital features in the concept can be changed via over-the-air updates, but Afeela's initial statements include the expected claims about autonomous driving and other connectivity features. Level 3 automated driving will be offered under limited conditions, with Level 2 driver assistance available in more situations, including urban driving. Sony also plans to open up the EV partnerships with customers and automotive industry partners, with Qualcomm Technologies' Snapdragon digital chassis system on a chip providing the technological support for this ability. Afeela isn't Sony's first concept EV, of course. The company unveiled the Vision S at CES in 2020 and an updated SUV version, the Vision S02, a year ago. Some of the designers and engineers who worked on those vehicles also worked on the new Afeela concept, according to Sony spokesperson Jun Kokitsu. While the missions were different, the Afeela sedan is headed to production, while the Vision S models were for experimenting. Kokitsu said, quote, "Since the members working on the Afeela came from the Vision S, there are an essence that is inherited from the previous project, but it's not totally the same," end quote. Some of that essence is what he called a neutral design language. He said, quote, "What this means is that EVs mean clean energy, so we want to emphasize the cleanliness and trying to reduce noise from the design. The top end resembles some softness, while the bottom is more about sharpness. So there's a kind of contrast of smoothness and sharpness, but the design concept itself is neutral." Kokitsu would not talk about any specific future Afeela designs, but he did say that other models would share this three-pronged aesthetic. So I'm sure we'll get more details in the coming years about this vehicle, but it's interesting that Sony, who had not really ever claimed that they were serious about making a car, even though we all kind of suspected it anyway, has finally come out and announced that, yes, they are going to make this. They're partnering with Honda to do it, and it's going to be all about technology, which, of course, is what CES has always been about. And that is the end of the CES news for this week, but I do have 4 other news items to share with you right after this.
Do you own a business and want to reach EV owners and people interested in electric vehicles? EV Resource is welcoming businesses nationwide, both big and small, to become advertising partners with us across all platforms. The EV Resource podcast, magazine, YouTube videos, social media, and our webpage. For more information, please email Zach at hello@ev-resource.com.
Okay, I know we're 35 minutes in already, so I'll try to make the rest of this quick for you. We'll start off with some news that is loosely related to electric vehicles, but this is a story that really touches my heart, and it brings me great sadness to share that automotive driver, rally and rallycross legend Ken Block died this past week in a snowmobiling accident. Ken is one of the greatest drivers to ever exist, and his series of Gymkhana videos influenced an entire generation of drivers who aspire to rallying and drifting greatness. And most recently in that series, Audi and Ken Block had teamed up to shoot an amazing video of Ken driving an electric purpose-built Audi through the streets and in through the buildings of Las Vegas. Ken was on the frontier of electric motorsport and was poised to bring in a lot of his millions of fans into the electric vehicle world. His talent and influence will definitely be missed. There isn't enough time to share all of the amazing things that he has done or even tell you about how amazing he was as a person and a father. Ken was a visionary, a pioneer, and an icon in the motorsport world. What he would likely have gone on to do for the transition to electric vehicles and the influence of more electric motorsport, it's impossible to predict, of course, but just reading some of the comments on his last video of people saying that they don't like electric vehicles because they miss the sound, but his performance with that was changing hearts and minds and bringing people over. It's so sad to see him go. So rest in peace, Ken. The world will miss you, but your legacy will absolutely live on. Next, a Tesla with 4 passengers plunged off of a 250-foot cliff along Highway 1 in California, injuring 2 adults. 2 children in the car were unharmed, and all 4 people survived, which is a testament to how strong and safe Tesla builds these vehicles. Here is a snippet from a local ABC News report about the accident.
We are getting a new perspective tonight on the rescue effort to save 4 lives after a car plunged off a cliff. The car veered off the road and plummeted 250 feet down the cliff with 4 people inside, including 2 young children. Emergency responders said the rescue was nothing like they'd ever seen before. ABC 7 News reporter Suzanne Fawn has the story now from Pacifica.
It was a dramatic rescue that was something right out of a movie. More than 30 rescuers from multiple agencies, and not 1, but 3 helicopters involved. Several of the choppers hovered in the sky above as rescue crews armed with ropes and special equipment scrambled to get to the accident victims of a cliff. It was a tremendous drop, about 250 to 300 feet.
We had 300-foot ropes, and we just about maxed them out to get down to those people.
Inside the car, a 9-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl and 2 adults. Not wanting to wait any longer, rescue crews took action right away.
We made the decision to hoist the children immediately instead of waiting for the ETA on the helicopters to arrive.
The adults were rescued by air with the help of the CHP and Coast Guard helicopters and a medical air ambulance. What happened today? A devastating crash, but one that had a truly unbelievable outcome.
This was nothing short of a miracle today that they survived.
In Pacifica, Suzanne Fawn, ABC 7 News.
This is absolutely remarkable and isn't the first time that I've heard about Teslas going over cliffs in California with everybody inside surviving. California Highway Patrol investigators worked throughout the night interviewing witnesses and gathering evidence from the scene, and based on the evidence they collected, investigators developed probable cause to believe that this incident was intentional. The driver of the car has been arrested for attempted murder and child abuse, but has not been charged yet as of January 4th. Next, another Tesla story. The company is apparently preparing to launch a less expensive version of the Model Y electric SUV, according to an update to its online configurator. In 2022, Tesla's vehicle lineup remained primarily unchanged here in North America, But now in 2023, it's expected to shake up a bit, especially with the new federal tax credit for electric vehicles potentially incentivizing some changes. Outside of North America, Tesla does sell a cheaper rear-wheel drive and shorter-range version of the Model Y. It's an extremely popular option, but here the automaker has refused to introduce it, or at least keep it, in the North American market. Tesla briefly offered the cheaper Model Y in North America in 2021, but it removed the option from the configurator, with CEO Elon Musk saying he didn't like the shorter range. However, Tesla continued to sell the vehicle in Europe and Asia. In North America, Tesla also offered the Model Y with the 4680 cells built at the Gigafactory in Texas. The vehicle still had a dual-motor all-wheel drive powertrain, but the new battery pack resulted in 279 miles of range. In comparison, the long-range Model Y has 330 miles of EPA-rated range. However, that version of the Model Y, the kind of standard range Model Y with dual motors, never appeared in Tesla's configurator, as it was only offered to Tesla employees or as a direct offer to some customers who had ordered a Model Y. Now, several Tesla configurator code trackers are reporting that the automaker has added a new configuration of the Model Y in the background of the configurator that seems to match this Model Y all-wheel drive with 4680 cells. The new Model Y is listed at $61,990, which is also the price that Tesla used to offer the Model Y with the 4680 cells, and it's also listed as a dual-motor all-wheel drive version. For now, the vehicle is only in the source code of the configurator and cannot be selected by buyers. The new vehicle appears in the code just as Tesla confirmed that it is now producing enough 4680 battery cells to build over 1,000 Model Y vehicles per week. However, as I mentioned in last week's podcast episode, the update from the U.S. Treasury Department about the vehicles eligible for the new $7,500 federal tax credit has raised some questions about what it takes to be considered an SUV and have the $80,000 MSRP limit on an EV model to get the credit. Currently, the Model Y only gets that $80,000 limit with the 7-seat configuration, and all of the other trim options do not. They are considered a car, not an SUV, and therefore would have to meet the $55,000 limit. Well, even this all-wheel drive standard range, we'll call it, Model Y, doesn't meet that $55,000 limit. So this wouldn't qualify for the EV tax credit. I think Tesla would need to make some changes to get the price down so buyers could take advantage of the credit. Or maybe they won't, and they won't do a thing, as demand is still strong for the Model Y, and the vehicle is quickly approaching the threshold of becoming the #1 selling vehicle in the world. It would be nice to see them reintroduce a rear-wheel drive standard range Model Y that would be, let's call it $54,990 or whatever, so that it was under that threshold, giving people access to a really good vehicle option with the $7,500 tax credit. So I don't know if anybody at Tesla that makes those decisions listens to this podcast, but if you do, please consider that. Okay, and the last news story I have for you is one to celebrate. Published on the EV Resource webpage, written by author Jane Marsh, she says that the recent drop in EV demand is only a blip in the long-term picture. While this past August 2022 saw a brief dip in EV sales, the overall trend is clear. More people want EVs in 2023 than ever before. So what caused the short decline in demand, and why do electric car commercials seem to be popping up constantly? The answer is multifaceted. According to the car buying trends website Edmunds, 34% of vehicle shoppers last year cited gas prices as a very important factor in their purchasing decisions. A full 12% said it was the most important. Consistent with this data, Edmunds reported that 1/4 of site visitors shopped for an EV in March of 2022 while gas prices were high. As gas prices fell in August, however, only 17% of shoppers wanted an electric vehicle. And fuel prices are always going to fluctuate. Although there might be a slight dip in EV demand while gas prices are low, the larger trend is that electric vehicle sales are climbing. More people are buying EVs than ever due to tax incentives, increased public awareness of climate change, and the desire to charge their cars from the comfort of their homes. Consumers got a preview of what life would be like without tailpipe emissions in March of 2020. Air quality vastly improved in some areas as transportation ground to a halt during the lockdown. to the point where buildings previously shrouded in smog were unveiled to the public's eye. This first-hand lesson in air pollution prompted people to rethink their vehicle choices. People already car shopping decided to cut ties with internal combustion engines forever, vowing to reduce their ecological footprint and save money on gas in the process. The choice to go electric makes a lot of sense, especially in cities where charging stations are easier to come by. Simultaneously, improved battery technology and charging station infrastructure eased consumers' range anxiety. Fewer people today are worried that they won't make it to a charging station in time. Furthermore, electric vehicles are no longer synonymous with dinky little European cars, a hurdle manufacturers had to overcome to appeal to an American audience. There are electric SUVs and pickups as well, and the trend of relegating electric batteries to clown cars seems to have lost momentum since larger families want room for their kids, ranchers need trucks that can haul hay, and, let's face it, most people want a normal-looking vehicle. As EVs expand to a broader audience, the market is no longer just edgy early adopters looking to make an environmental statement. Making EVs blend in with city traffic is an important step towards normalizing their use. Many shoppers want to buy EVs in the US, but there just aren't enough electric cars for sale right now. In some cases, waiting lists stretch years into the future, and electric vehicle owners are selling their used cars for a premium, sometimes fetching a higher price than they paid at the dealership. Soaring global lithium prices, a dearth of EV battery recycling technology, chip shortages, and unevenly distributed subsidies all contribute to the problem of high prices. However, as kinks in the supply chain work themselves out, manufacturers will almost certainly be able to match the EV demand. It's only a matter of time. Additionally, for this year, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, will start giving EV tax credits to EV manufacturers, bolstering the electric vehicle market. 2023 is set to be a fantastic year for EV sales. The fact that so many people want to buy an EV is good news. Society can't run on gas guzzlers forever, especially as the population grows and people are forced closer together. Electric vehicles emit no air pollution, reduce dependence on foreign oil and gas, allow people to charge their cars overnight, and make the roads quieter. If we're lucky, they might even look good in the process. So I want to thank Jane for writing that article and contributing to the overall impact that EV Resource has. I definitely wanted to share that with you, and if you haven't gone on the webpage to read that, I would encourage you to do so and share it on social media. So that's all for the news this week, and boy, was there a lot to go through, so thank you for making it this far with me. In the interest of time, I am going to skip the question of the week, and we will revisit that next time. As a reminder, you can participate in the question of the week via the pinned post on Patreon, and you do not have to be a Patreon supporter to participate. Before I get to the ending bits, I do have a big announcement. I have sold my Spark EV. I bought it almost 4 years ago in March of 2019, and it was the biggest reason I started EV Resource. I sold it to my brother because he was in need of an affordable EV, and I don't really drive enough anymore for it to affect me. In its stead, I bought a 2005 Scion XB to hold me over until my Aptera gets delivered next year. So yes, I'm back to a gas car for the time being while my wife drives the Model 3, and I'll just have to suffer as a result. Although it is nice to not have a car payment, and from a financial aspect, this was a really good move. I am super, super sad to sell the car, but I know it went to a good home, and I'll still be able to visit from time to time. Okay, so let's end this show. I want to thank the EV Resource Patreon family, starting with the Director tier. Longtime supporter and friend Rajeev Narayan leads the pack at that top level and gets a ton of benefits in exchange for his support. Next, we have the Executive Producer tier, where Christopher Lawrence and Andy Cooper show their monthly support. The three of those names should be familiar to you by now, as I read them out on every podcast episode. The starting support tier is the Producer tier, and on a monthly basis, I read out the names of Charles Hall, Eric Weber, and Alan Michael. Thank you all very much for your support. I appreciate it. I do not take it for granted. It means a lot to me. All Patreon supporters get access to ad-free episodes of the EV Resource podcast and are invited to participate in the monthly Zoom chat, as well as many other benefits. If you have been a longtime listener, or even if you're new and you feel like I've earned your support, and I do mean earned, I'm not looking for handouts, I would encourage you to head on over to patreon.com/EVResource and consider joining our small but growing Patreon family. Additionally, instead of membership fees or paywalls, we use advertising and affiliate connections to keep the EV Resource podcast and the EV Resource magazine free for all of you. So I would encourage you to please consider supporting the sponsors who make EV Resource possible. You can find a full listing of organizations and coupon codes at evresource.com/deals. We also have on the webpage a small but growing collection of products on Amazon that we recommend. You can find that on the webpage under the shop section. As always, I invite your feedback via email to hello@ev-resource.com. And that is it for this podcast. So thank you so much for being with me, especially if you made it this far, and I'll catch you next week.